Ted Honey. I was born in Oakland, California, so I'm a local native, and grew up in San Pablo area, San Pablo, Richmond area. And my dad bought a gas station in 1957, and so naturally, in addition to going to school, I worked at the gas station, and my dad was very safety conscious as well. And in fact, in '62, when they came out with seatbelts, we installed a lot of seatbelts in a lot of the older cars, because safety was a big deal. And so I worked there. Then in high school, I saw a PG&E crew work by and put a pipeline right in front of our station. I said, wow, that looks pretty cool. Wouldn't mind doing some of that stuff. So after high school, and I said, well, I'm going to go down to PG&E and see if I can get a job. So I went down to the division, and they weren't hiring, so I knew they had a general construction office in San Leandro, so I went to San Leandro. So I was walking into the office, two guys were walking out, and they said, if you're looking for a job, they're not hiring. So that was good information to know. So I walked in and said, I don't want to waste a trip, so walked in there and said, can I help you? Cookie, the big heavyset clerk, said, can I help you, boy? I said, yes, I want to work. He said, well, we're not, and the other clerk said, we're not hiring. I said, well, you're missing a damn good opportunity. I just figured I could work harder than any two guys you have. He said, is that right, boy? He said, can you pass a physical? I said, yes, sir. He said, can you weld? I said, yes, sir. He picked up a piece of thin wall pipe. He said, can you weld this thin wall pipe? I said, that's not thin wall pipe. He said, yes, it is. I said, tailpipe is thin wall pipe. He said, can you weld tailpipe? I said, since I was about 10 years old, I can. I weld tailpipe, I knew arc welding and also acetylene welding. He said, do you think you could pass the test? Go home and study and come back and pass the test? I said, how about if you give me the test and then I can go home and come back to work for you? So that's exactly what they did, and I passed it, and I passed the physical. But ironically, I came to work as a laborer, not as a welder, even though I could pass the test. And I was really good on running equipment. So I ran equipment on the farm, and so I was very good at that. So I went up there and I became a rapper, then an equipment operator, truck driver, and all those. And before long, I was running a backhoe. And then after that, they decided, well, we want to have you be a foreman. I said, well, I really like what I'm doing. And so they said, well, you can keep the backhoe on the job. And that lasted about 2 days, and that was gone. And so I pushed the crew, and I run little services, and also run big pipelines. And safety was the number one thing. And I'd tell my men, I'd tell board every morning about safety, what we're going to do. Now, if anybody knows how to do this job safer, please speak up and tell us. Because safety is the biggest thing, and any member of this crew can shut down this job if there's a safety violation. That's my policy. And I didn't yell at any of the crews. If you hear me yelling, that means it's dangerous, something's happening. So that was my attitude. And then about 11 years later, I had a job in Pleasant Hill. The gentleman didn't have his hard toes on, so I got out of my pickup and run over there and said, you need to get your safety equipment on. So one guy went over to get safety equipment, the other guy was just climbing out of the trench. A car ran a stoplight and hit another car, a 1959 Chrysler Imperial, and it came through our barricades, and there was an older gentleman driving, and it jumped the trench and took me 22 feet under the front of the car into a wall. I seen the car coming, I had about a nanosecond. I knew the wall was behind me, so I took about a half a step to the left. When the car ended up with the wall, I was hanging onto the headlight, and there was just enough room for me to be there. My foot was under the right front wheel. So that was a pretty bad accident. And so the paramedics came, they jacked up the car and got me out of there, and they brought me to the hospital. And I tried, after they did surgery, about 2 surgeries on my ankle, they tried to fix it. And I lost about 50% of the motion, and I couldn't do the construction work that I was doing. But luckily, I always felt I always couldn't put my eggs in one basket. So I started going to junior college right after I went to work for PG&E. It took me about 10 years to get my 2-year degree, but I got my 2-year degree. So consequently, I didn't have to start off with something else. I just wrote a resume, sent it to San Francisco, and they basically gave me 4 or 5 different job opportunities. And I took the one with safety, health, and claims because safety was my game. So that's what I wanted to do. So after that, I wanted to get into safeties, but I did workers' comp for 3 years, then an opening came in Chico, California. I moved up there for safety. And Ron had been up there two times prior to me, the second guy prior to me. And it was a great area, and I wanted to stay there forever. I loved it. Safety was my thing. I spent a lot of time out there in the field. Like Ron, also showed up at the job crew meetings. And so if you stop safety at the beginning, where they bring up an issue, you eliminate the accidents. So that's what I did. And in order to rehab from my job, from the accident, I went into martial arts, Tai Chi, because I wanted to get back because of my ankle. I had walked with a brace on and special shoes. So I wanted to get out of that. So I had a good friend, John Yee, who used martial arts, and it took me 2 years to eliminate my brace and get back in regular shoes. So it was a long struggle, but I worked really hard, kept on working there, and I spent 35 years doing martial arts, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, and 8.5 years of kickboxing. And then after I retired from PG&E after 45 years, I continued learning. My Sifu of the academy, Chinese Martial Arts Academy, was a Chinese medicine doctor. So I learned from him and started studying Chinese medicine for the last 9 years. And so I know how to do Chinese massage, Thai massage, but safety was always my main thing that I wanted to do. Safety is my thing, always has been. And in fact, PG&E did an article about me in 2015 about safety. Safety never retires, always stays with you all the time. But in addition to that, I have a family with 3 children, and raised them, and they're all doing well. 2 of them, one's in education, one works for PG&E, my daughter works for PG&E. My son is a principal of a high school, and my other younger son works in Hong Kong here for Morgan Stanley. But I continued to work. I had a 41 pickup I kind of rehabbed, and several other ones rehabbed. And I rehabbed this one. This is a 1985 Mercedes 380 SL. And this is a picture of me in my martial arts outfit. And so, and then I got into that, and so now I have another Mercedes. I also raced motorcycles for a while, but once I had my ankle injury, I couldn't do any of that, so I had to sell all 3 of them. So if you do it right, you do it safely. If you can't do it safely, you don't do it. Plain and simple.
Ted, another safety expert was telling me about a day that you checked around a house to be sure that it was safe for an infant who was coming home. Tell me about that really quickly, and then please tell me too about how that applies in your work life.
Okay. Well, when I was doing that presentation, I felt like when we had a baby, I had our first baby back in 1970, I decided, I said, we're having a baby come into the house, they're going to be crawling. So I said, I need to get on the floor to see what they're doing, because babies put everything in their mouth. So I got on the floor and went through the whole house and cleaned everything and made sure there was nothing there that they could find on the floor when they start crawling and put it in their mouth. That's what babies do. And periodically I would do that, because sometimes you were working around the house, my wife or I, you could drop something, it could roll out of sight and you wouldn't see it. So constantly I did that. I did it for my second child, my third child. We never had anything choking of any foreign objects in their mouth, because I wanted to keep them safe. That's my goal.
Now, are there parallels to that in the workplace?
Absolutely. No matter what kind of work you're doing, you want to make sure that if you haven't done that particular job before and you're supervising it, you want to talk to the person, you want to observe the person and how they're doing things to make sure you understand where they're coming from. Because if you don't understand how and why they're doing their job and how to do it safely, you can't help them. You have to make sure you understand what's going on. And then once you understand, institute safety procedures. And it was difficult for me when I first started as a supervisor with PG&E, because I was supervising the guys I work with. And that's always very tough to do that, because they're just your buddy and they try to treat you like a buddy. And I said, no, but they knew how safety conscious I was, and I continued to be. And I said, I know we're friends, And you have to do it my way, safety-wise, and if you can't do that, you can't be on my crew. That's all there is to it. And I've never had any accidents during the time I was a supervisor.